Welcome to Family Basics 101. I'm Dr. Bruce McClure, and as we begin a 5-part series entitled Self-Esteem, we will look at 5 components of the term or the behavior or the results of self-esteem or the lack thereof. First, we will discuss the working definition of what is self-esteem. Secondly, we will look at why is self-esteem so essential. Third, what is self-love to self-esteem? Fourth, we will discuss self-image and self-esteem. And finally, we will discuss how do you now respond when self-esteem is low. In the present here and now, how does self-esteem react when it's low in terms of your behaviors toward others as well as your behavior toward yourself? Let's begin by discussing a working definition of self-esteem. According to the National Institute of Health, located in Bethesda, Maryland, self-esteem is the simplified term that is used for the complex mental state used by individuals through which they simply attempt to define themselves. The term self-esteem in and by itself is not broad enough to really help an individual properly define life as they are experiencing it in the moment. Now, the National Institute of Health would liken the manifest of either healthy self-esteem or the manifest of low self-esteem to looking up at a skyscraper and being wowed by what one sees simply by looking up. The strength of what is visible in terms of what you see as you look up is first defined by the foundation which is not seen with the naked eye. The underground building blocks of self-esteem, which typically are not seen directly by looking up at the skyscraper, but rather by looking at what does self-esteem, those foundational building blocks, really mean? Self-meaning in terms of what does the individual define himself or herself as being? Self-identity. How does the individual identify himself or herself? Self-image. How does the individual see himself or herself? And self-concept. What does the individual really conceptualize or believe about himself or herself? Those are the foundational building blocks upon which the skyscraper is really built. Therefore, self-esteem or the lack thereof is measured by the frequency and the intensity of psychological scars that have impeded the emotional development of an individual. To the extent that an individual has been scarred, to the extent that the individual has processed or moved beyond those scars, will really define the skyscraper, the self-esteem that we talk so much about. The degree of competency or the degree of value and worth one assigns to self is a definition for self-esteem. The respect and pride one has within oneself is a good definition for self-esteem. It's the respect and it's the pride within the individual that the world will never see. but yet they will see the skyscraper results. But what is contained inside of how the individual sees himself or herself? The internalized value a person has for who they are mentally, who they are emotionally, who they are relationally, and who they are spiritually is a great definition for self-esteem. Self-esteem is best defined as the mindset that a person embraces about how they fit into the world around them and how the world around them see who they are as an individual. So how do you see yourself fitting into the world around you? And how do you perceive others receiving you into the world that you are attempting to fit into? Really helps to define self-esteem. Self-esteem, according to both religious and psychological and social work authorities, seem to be one of the most powerful influences contributing to negative or positive outlooks on life and every underlying action of human beings. Some would even say self-esteem is the single greatest need of the entire human race today to really learn to assimilate together without attacking and without trying to do what we would consider a one-upsmanship on one another, or even deciding to recede or to run away from the world around them. In the book of 1 Samuel, chapter 10, verses 20 through 24, there's an excellent story about a man who others wanted to be king. But what they didn't realize was the foundation. They failed to understand those building blocks we talked about. But rather they were looking at the skyscraper of the individual, and they failed to examine the foundation, but the individual knew his own foundation. The man's name is Saul. He's going to ultimately become the first king of Israel. But there are some esteem issues going on with him. The Bible says, when Samuel had caused all the tribes of Israel to come near, the tribe of Benjamin was taken. When he had caused the tribe of Benjamin to come near, by their families, by the families of McClure was taken, and Saul, the son of Kish, was taken. And when they sought him, they couldn't find him. Interesting. Therefore they inquired of the Lord further, if the man should yet come thither. And the Lord answered, behold, he hath hid himself among the stuff. And they ran and fetched him thither. And when he stood among the people, he was higher than any of the people from his shoulders upward. And Samuel said to all the people, see ye him whom the Lord hath chosen, that there is none like him among all the people? And all the people shouted and said, God save the king. They misunderstood what Samuel was saying. You want a man who has low self-esteem to be your king? And they all applauded affirmatively because they were looking at the skyscraper and they missed the foundation. I'll see you back in class again tomorrow. Don't be late and don't skip class.